Hey guys! Gearbox News Network is on!
Hello everyone, this is David from Gearbox News Network here today with the one, the only, Jim Foronda. One face, 1,000 voices. Welcome to the show.
Hello David, how you doing? It's good to be back.
Pretty good. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Gosh, it's been a whole game ago.
So, for those of you who do not know who Jim Foronda is, he is the voice actor behind the Claptrap in Borderlands 3 and Borderlands VR. And he's also about 1,000 different voices in Battleborn, which is another Gearbox software title. And he does various other non-Gearbox related work. He has quite an array of voices that he can do.
Oh gosh. Let me. I should clarify. I'm only the VR tutorial lines in Borderlands 2 VR. They wanted me to get as close as possible so they could just kind of drop me in whenever there's a VR specific tool, like how to use BAMF time and stuff like that. So yeah.
All right. Well, with that clarified, let's jump right into the questions that I have here for you. So, where are you from?
Oh gosh, where am I from? Well, currently I'm in the Dallas area. Like like a lot of the voice actors out here is, the anime here is huge. So there's a lot of voice actors out here. Same thing with advertising. There's a lot of ad agencies out here. So a lot of voice actors out here. But before then, I grew up in Florida, and then before Florida, I was born in Tennessee. So there you have it.
So you weren't born here, and you necessarily weren't raised here, but you got here as soon as you could. So
yeah, pretty much. I got here in 1998 when I was working in advertising.
Awesome. So what is your favorite video game or game series, and why?
Oh, good lord! I didn't know this question was coming. That is a whole show in and of itself. That is a whole different show. Favorite game series. Okay, so. I have many, but it would be really, really corny to say, wow, I love Borderlands, because, I do. But I'm not going to do that. My favorite non-Borderlands game series, one of them, would be the Yakuza series. Oh, gosh. I played the first one way back on the PlayStation 2. I think it's been 15 years now. Yeah, because they've remastered them with the Yakuza Kiwami series. They remastered Yakuza 1 and 2. And then Yakuza's 3, 4, and 5, they've remastered, and they're being distributed on the PlayStation 4. So if you want to play through the entire thing. But yeah, the entire series. I even loved Dead Souls, even though the shooting was a little clunky. But there's this great combination of serious drama, serious hard-boiled crime drama in the main story game, in the main story missions, in the main game of, oh my gosh. What am I saying? In the main story missions. And then they have all these side missions in the game where all this comedy comes from. And for some reason, the Sega's translation team here in the US, they just do an incredible job of keeping it funny and keeping it serious and somehow marrying the entire thing. Because obviously it works in Japanese, but they're able to carry that over through the translation, through the subtitles, and it's a phenomenal series. Yeah, if anybody has not played it, Yakuza Kiwami is the remake of Yakuza 1, and it's on PC and PlayStation 4, so good place to start. And boy howdy, you've got 7 games ahead of you. Oh, no, 8 if you include Dead Souls.
That's
and
a
then
lot.
9 if you include Judgment, which is a new game by the same programming team that takes place in the same city, in the same universe, but completely different characters.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. It's almost like Halo 3 ODST, I guess. I don't really know the mainline story of Halo 3, but I know ODST takes place in the same universe, just in a slightly different area.
Yeah, it's like a side story. But yeah, the Judgment is similar, but instead of being a member of the Yakuza, you're actually a private investigator who used to be a lawyer. And oh gosh, it's just I'm throwing the interview off course. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. These usually go on for like an hour and a half, so it's fine.
No, I could talk about favorite video games for hours because there's a lot.
All right. So we're just gonna move on here before this just becomes a Yakuza episode.
Yeah.
So how long have you been voice acting?
Oh gosh. So voice acting since 2002. 2002. Yes, I got into it through my my day job by accident, really. Never intended on becoming a voice actor, but I ended up becoming one. And there's a story behind that, which I should probably tell. Okay, so I used to be a writer for Hasbro Toys. They were our largest client at our ad agency, and there was so much work that they actually spun us off into our own smaller ad agency. So anyway, 2001, we are tasked with doing one G.I. Joe spot for the 12-inch G.I. Joe. They brought those back like in 2001. And so then a year later, we ended up getting Transformers and a bunch of other stuff, My Little Pony, all the Hasbro stuff. So in 2002, there was a computer animated spot that was going to be selling the 3 3/4 inch figures, the 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figures. And originally, we had union talent in that. We had, oh gosh, Mark Hamill was Duke, which was crazy. That was just the coolest thing ever.
You worked with Mark Hamill?
Well,
worked in the place where he was.
Well, no. He dialed in via ISDN. This is like 2000. This is before the internet. It was like a studio patch to the studio that we were at, and so he said the lines. I asked my boss, hey, is there anything else that you need him to say? Tell him to do it again, only faster. So I lean over and I press the button. I go, hey, Mark, that was great. Can you do it one more time, only just a little faster? And then I let go of the button. I'm like, oh my God, I just directed Mark Hamill with one sentence. But it was mind blowing. So here's the problem. Is that there was a budget miscalculation by the producer, and it turns out they did not have money for the union talent. So they basically all those actors they got their session fees, but they ended up not doing the spot. They ended up not using their voices. So there was this emergency ad agency. Everybody go into the booth. Everybody read all these parts. Do your best, and we're just going to send them to Hasbro, and they'll cast whoever. So it was blind casting. We didn't do slates. They didn't know who was playing who. They returned their favorite MP3s as who they liked. So they cast me as Duke, Cobra Commander, a British reporter, heavy duty, and Destro. And I'm thinking, I'm forgetting somebody else. Anyway, yeah, I ended up being all these voices in our G.I. Joe spots, in our G.I. Joe campaign. And afterwards, when they found out about it, they started asking me, hey, just have him do it. Have Foronda do it. And so our new producer, eventually he said, you could actually do this as a side job. And I put together a reel of all the stuff that I'd done for Hasbro. And I read some old Pizza Hut scripts that I'd written when I worked for when I was writing for Pizza Hut, and I got an agent. I went and I sent it out with a letter, and they gave me representation. And the first thing I ever did that wasn't like something that I wrote for Hasbro was a Coca-Cola ad for an over-the-stadium announcement for a high school football stadium. So yeah, that was that. And that's how I got into voice acting.
Well, that's pretty cool. So that kind of tails into my next question of how did you get involved with Gearbox and gaming? Like that's a big jump going from buy Coca-Cola to Stairs, no!
Well, golly, that goes way back. Okay, so the first thing I ever did for Gearbox was multiplayer character A in one of the Brothers in Arms games. By that time I'd done some work for Funimation, and I had some good character stuff in there. Some, growly folks, yelly folks, and yeah, they just needed somebody for some multiplayer screaming and yelling and dying, and I can't do that, Sarge. Where do you want me to go, Sarge? That type of stuff. And that was the first thing I recorded for Gearbox.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, my first character role, multiplayer character A. Didn't even have a name.
So what is your favorite character that you voiced in a game?
Favorite character I voiced in a game? Oh man, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's like
gosh.
trying to... I assume it's as stressful as trying to pick your favorite child.
It is. I gotta say... Oh man. It would be a toss-up between Oscar Mike and Isaac from Battleborn. I love Claptrap, but I'm kind of taking over for that role. So it's with the Battleborn crew, that was something that we kind of created from the ground up, and they evolved. And I love how they're kind of these video game archetypes. You have Oscar Mike, who, he's the Call of Duty type soldier. He was meant to be the introductory character because there's so many different characters in that game. And then you find out that he's a clone, and he lived longer than he was originally meant to live, and he's starting to go beyond his clone programming, or his programming in a sense, because they gave him this base bro personality, and of course he's going beyond that, and he's starting to write poetry, and he's making friends, and he has 8 cats. They're all holographic cats, but he loves them just the same. And he's essentially he's like a child that happens to really love killing bad space aliens, but emotionally he just wants friends, and he's trying to figure out who he is and where he belongs in the grand scheme of things. And he grows attached to the other characters in the game. They're kind of like his surrogate family, because all the other clones he's known have either died, or he was ejected from Planet Mike. So there was a lot of depth to him, and it was just, on the surface he looks just like a generic soldier character, but there's so much to him. And then Isaac was just the angriest AI robot I think I could possibly imagine, but he sounded so cheerful.
Yes, he did.
And he has depth on his own too. It's really hard to say which character is a favorite, but it is like picking a child, and it's just, and I could go on and on about Claptrap now. It's like he's my Claptrap is my adopted son.
So you talked about all this, like picking your favorite child is like a hard thing. So let's kind of flip there. And my next question is, what is the best thing about voice acting in your experience?
The best thing about voice acting? Oh gosh. Wow, that's a broad question. Wow. There's going to be a lot of dead air in this interview, because oh gosh, the best thing about voice acting. It's fun. You're essentially pretending and building characters and as a job, and it's one of the most exhilarating things to do when you go in a booth and you've got great writers and great directors, and they just let you run with it. And then if there's something a little off, they'll go, oh, maybe try it like this. And it's especially when it's super collaborative, when writers let you play with the characters, and the director lets you improvise and stuff. it's extraordinarily exhilarating. It's fun. Yeah, that's the greatest thing about voice acting is that it's when you're working, it's most of the time it's really fun.
Well, you know what they say. If you're having fun while you're working, you never work a day in your life.
Oh gosh. And then of course, here's the thing. On the flip side with voice acting is that when it's not something that you do every day unless you're extraordinarily successful. So yeah, when I'm not working, that's when I think, man, I should be working right now. What am I, and so I still do freelance writing in my spare time. So it kind of flipped. I used to voice act on the side while doing advertising writing. Now I mainly voice act, but then I do writing on the side. So
it kind of just flip-flopped over the years. It's
pretty much
cool.
Yeah.
So I guess we can sort of skip the next question then, because you sort of answered it. But in case you wanted to elaborate on something, I'll just kind of bring it up. What is the hardest or most challenging thing about voice acting?
The most challenging thing about voice acting is making a living voice acting. I've been doing this for 17 years, and many of those, 11 of those years, I was working and advertising at the same time, and I wrote for Hasbro at the same place for 12 years. For 12 years. And one day they got a new chief marketing officer, and with them, they brought in their old ad agency. And our company lost 3/4 of the business in a month. And so luckily I'd been with the company so long that I had, some money set aside in savings. And there's a little bit of severance when you got laid off that was like, here you go, here's some money to, keep you afloat for a little while. And I thought to myself, if I don't try voice acting full-time now, I will never do it, because it's terrifying. It's terrifying to step out and do that, especially because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and medical supplies are stupid expensive in the United States. To not die, it's one of those things. I was 6 years old, and surprise, you're going to take shots for the rest of your life. And yeah, it's like I needed to work so I can, not die. And yeah, it's a scary thing, because sometimes you'll have long stretches where you're just not getting work sometimes, and you're thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I should, go back to an office, but then something will come up and you're like, okay, this is good. And when work is great and it's coming in, you basically, like a squirrel, you take all of these nuts and you put them in your little tree, and you hold on to that for times when there are no nuts, and then you can basically live off of the nuts that you've saved in your tree. And that's what it's like. I mean, any sort of freelance work is like that. You what is it? What's the saying? Make hay while the sun shines. I don't know. That's why it sounds weird.
I'm not really sure what
some
quote
saying.
you're talking about
Some saying. Feast or famine is, it's you either have a lot of work or you're looking for it. So it's acting full time is not an easy thing. And had I not been laid off, I never would have been brave enough to quit my job. It was kind of, forced upon me in that sense, where it's like, guess what? Your job is gone. And I thought, yep, now's the time to do it. And I was, I did advertising freelance and voice work, and that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years.
Well, it's pretty cool. I'm glad you decided to go for it, because like the work that you've done, the lives that you've impacted with just your voice, like through video games and through the anime that you've done, and everything else that you've advertised, the money that people have spent because they heard your voice selling Coca-Cola, I'm sure has impacted their lives.
That's something like, hey, Coca-Cola is now in the concession stand. So they probably spent some change on the concession stand to get their soda in the middle of the game. Went to the school. That's good.
So I'm kind of gonna veer away from from what we're doing right now and kind of change the topic a little bit.
Okay.
To kind of your preference. Like, what kind of characters would you prefer in future roles? Like, do you even have a preference? Like, because you mentioned work in your field is kind of just like whatever people can give you. To some extent, you can be picky because you're really good at it, right?
Being picky. I am not at a state where I can be. I would say I can be picky. I still have to audition for roles and stuff like everybody else. Occasionally, sometimes somebody will seek me out for a role, but I like working. There was oh gosh, there are some jobs that I think I would not take. There was a political ad that I didn't do because this was the weirdest thing. They wanted a sound-alike for the opponent, and which basically they wanted somebody to sound like their opponent in the political ad and potentially mislead people hearing the political ad as to thinking that the opponent actually said something that they did not say. And that's just, here's the thing. I don't care what side it would have been. I wouldn't have done that because it's
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I wouldn't do that for my side, and I wouldn't do that for the other side, simply because it's just wrong.
Immoral.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so that actually happened once. Yeah, the political ads. Here's the thing, I'd never get political ads, I guess, because I don't sound like a responsible voter, I suppose. I don't know.
Stay informed, citizen.
I know, exactly. I guess the voices I'm known for are usually stranger, off kilter. So, but I do industrial narration and stuff like that. I tell people how to read their new electric bill and how to have a safety preparedness kit for tornadoes, that type of thing. It's I guess, nobody usually seeks me out for political ads, but that was the one time, I guess, because I'm, I might be able to do a sound-alike of it, I guess, and it was just like, I'm not doing that. That's just not right. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about Battleborn for a while a minute ago, and I kind of want to, we can't do a Jim Foronda interview if we don't talk about Battleborn half of the interview, right? So I think I asked you this last time, but I'm not quite sure if I did. If you could voice anyone in Battleborn that you didn't, who would it be?
Oh gosh. I think I auditioned for everybody in that game, but there's one character that I did. I really liked my read for it, but I did not get it, and but that's fine because Chris did an incredible job being Rendane because he was such a good villain. But my take was completely different. For some reason, I used a very self-absorbed version of my grandmother's German accent, my maternal grandmother's German accent, and oh gosh, that would have been fun to play. But I did plenty of work in Battleborn. Oh gosh, that was such a good game. I wish more people had played it, but it's just, it's one of the few games I've actually platinumed on my PlayStation 4. I play a lot of games, and I get trophies when I can, but I've only platinumed Journey and Saints Row 4 and Battleborn, and I'm really close to platinuming Control, and about halfway to platinuming Borderlands 3.
Well, they're both really good games. I mean, Gearbox has just made some amazing titles with unique characters and fun gameplay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gearbox games with unique characters and fun gameplay, that kind of brings me around to a little more positive, less reminiscing in history and more of what's current. How did you become the new voice of Claptrap, and how did you prepare for such a role?
Okay, so oh gosh, I as a matter of fact, I was sitting right here in front of my computer, and I was recording auditions for who knows what. I remember because I was editing stuff down, and I get a text message, and it's it's basically it's a message from one of the sound folks, and they were asking, hey, should I talk to you or should I go through your agent? And I'm like, oh, here, well, yeah, you go through my agent, but I'm just curious, what is it that you're talking about? And they're like, here's some stuff. Can you do this? And I'm thinking, what do you need me for? And because I'm just an actor. I don't know what goes on, but I was like, okay, it's, I did my best, and I didn't hear anything back for a while, and a few months later, there was I was asked, okay, this was great, this sounds good, maybe can you were a little too fast, change this pitch, maybe, and so I did it again, and then there was another round of that. It was about 7 months later, I get a text message from Sam saying, hey, we played your audition for everybody, and we did that today. And then that's the last text message he sends me, and I'm thinking, wait, what happened? And I'm texting him back, yeah, and what happened? And that's when he told me that everybody liked it, and then I'd gotten it, and I was just, it was mind-boggling. My wife was out of town for a business trip at the time, and so I called her and left her a message, and she saved the message and she played it back for me when she got home, and I sound like a lunatic on that message. And I couldn't sleep. I was just like, it was just, it's like somebody asking you to be the next Mickey Mouse or the next Kermit the Frog or something. It's just like, I still couldn't wrap my head around it. And then even now it's still kind of like, how did I end up here? But it's the fact that I was asked is a huge honor in that sense. It's to be entrusted with, such an iconic character, and it's like, to step into established, I was going to say shoes, but to step into an established wheel, it's extraordinarily intimidating. And I did the best I could, and it's, some people are liking it, and I'm glad about that. It's I like the boy. He's a good boy. He's misunderstood. He's very socially awkward. He doesn't, he wants friends. He just, he has difficulty doing that.
All right. So here comes the fun part. This is the rewarding part for those of you viewing right now. I reached out to Reddit. I reached out to the Gearbox, unofficial Gearbox Discord. I reached out on Twitter. I reached out everywhere. And I got some requests. And those that are approved and weren't memes, or actually were funny memes, I'm going to be asking you to do them. Or any questions that the community might have had that I couldn't think about and I didn't want to just steal, and I wanted to let them ask you.
Okay. So
the very first one, and these are completely in a randomized order in which I probably got them. So we'll probably skip around between r/Battleborn, r/Borderlands, and Twitter.
Cool.
But the very first one comes from u/SlushySlap. These names are great. people on Reddit have such great names sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And r/Battleborn. So, please thank him and tell him that Oscar Mike is one of my favorite video game characters of all time. As for requests, screw you, Coop, as Isaac. I changed a word.
Screw you, Coop, as Isaac.
Yeah, I think it's...
I don't know who you are, Coop, but your friends told me to say, screw you, Coop. You're all meatbags anyway, so I don't care.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Coop is gonna have it someday. Hopefully, you/Slushy Slap, hopefully you watch this and send this to your friend.
There you go. I hope they're friends. I hope Coop isn't like some major, enemy of Slushy Slap, and they're just delivering their anger at them through me. That would be bad.
I hope they're friends too. So next we have someone from r/Borderlands, you/Mr. Gaslight. How many times did you have to practice? And open.
Oh gosh. So originally, in the very beginning for Borderlands 2 VR, they intended to drop me in David's existing lines, and so they wanted me to get as close as possible. That was super intimidating because his performance is it's iconic. I mean, it's distinctly his, and to try to get close to that was a challenge. So I never had to say and open, believe it or not, but I think the closest to any existing line, oh gosh, what does he say in the beginning of Borderlands 3 when they're trying to get into shivs? I think he says like hello bloodthirsty killer, or something along those lines. It's interesting because one of the things that's really difficult about playing Claptrap is you have a natural tendency to go too high because you're thinking of how Claptrap sounds after all of the effects have been put in, but his voice is pitched upward. So if you go too high, then he goes way too high. So you have to kind of go in the original delivery. So it's like you kind of have to try to match the original actor's actual voice as opposed to the pitch changed voice, the affected voice. It was difficult. It was difficult. Like I said, I did my absolute best to get him right, and yeah, it was there was a lot of practice involved. not specifically that line, but just pretty much everything.
Yeah, I would imagine there would be a lot of practice for such an iconic character. You want to get him just right, or as close as you can to the voice that David Eddings made so many years ago.
Yeah.
So I almost skipped one because they're two in the same message. Another one from r/Battleborn. My brother and I love Battleborn, and Oscar Mike is his favorite character. If you could him that we are fans of his work and get him to say hello Booga as Oscar Mike or something of the sort, it would be greatly appreciated.
Hello Booga. Okay.
What do you want me to say? Oh, hello, Booga. What planet do you come from? I mean, there aren't that many here. There aren't that many left, so, I'll just assume you're not human, because Booga's a weird name. Okay, bye!
Our next question comes from r/Battleborn. How many effects were put on Isaac's voice, and how did it sound without effects?
Oh gosh.
And this is from you/In Your Dreams Pedro.
Gosh, how many effects were put on Isaac's voice? That is something that I am not privy to. That is you'd have to ask somebody in the Gearbox sound department about that. I'm guessing there are some a lot of filters. A lot of the bass was taken out of my voice for that to make it sound more tinny, more electronic coming through speakers, and there's some phasing too to make him sound kind of electronic-y. But Isaac pretty much just sounds like me talking like this. Isaac is probably one of the voices that's closest to myself, only it is super happy and super cheerful and
violent.
Oh yeah, and violent. He's kind of sociopathic in a sense. He's one of the key things about Isaac is that it's best to smile the entire time you are talking, because there are muscles in your face that when you smile, it actually, in a very subtle way, it changes the sound of your voice. Because when people are happy and they talk to us when they're smiling, there's a certain sound to that. And so when you smile while you're acting, it's a very subtle sound. It's hard to pinpoint, but it does affect the performance in a way. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. I mean, I'd imagine if Isaac could smile, he'd probably be smiling very creepily. Very, very creepily while he's talking.
He's got some choppers that in his hollow skull, I mean, he's a oh gosh. Oh, what is the line? He basically explains, that's why my face is a skull.
Yeah, I was thinking of that line too, but I can't remember the full line or the context to it.
He's talking about like his enemies running in abject terror or something like that. I can't remember. I recorded that like 6 years ago, I think. So, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, development of Battleborn was many moons ago.
Yeah.
So our next question comes from u/Mr. Dreadnought from r/Borderlands. And what is favorite weapons manufacturer?
Favorite weapons manufacturer from Borderlands, since Borderlands 2 has been Tediore. Has always been Tediore because...
guns with legs?
No. Guns that basically will still do damage while you're reloading, in a sense. Because in all shooters... I love this gun, and oh no, I'm pausing to reload. This precious seconds I'm losing reloading. I'm either getting attacked or the chance to kill the boss while the weak spot was, you know what I mean? It's and then the fact that with a Tediore weapon, when you're reloading, you're still causing damage because you're throwing the old weapon and it is exploding. So Tediore was my favorite in Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel. And then, boy, Tediore's gone kind of nuts in Borderlands 3. Oh gosh, I unlocked the 10-gallon last night, and it's like an option from Gradius. Do you have that one yet, or have you managed to? The 10 gallon's a legendary Tediore SMG, right? And when you reload it, or when you throw it, it basically hovers around you like a little friend. Like a little bird, a little gun shooting bird that kind of just hovers around you and shoots for you while you're. It's like a little floaty drone gun assistant that lasts until it runs out of ammo and then blows up, and then you can just reload another one. It's really awesome.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I haven't actually played Borderlands 3 yet because I'm broke.
Oh man.
I've been watching a bunch of streamers play it, and I've been looking forward to it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it looks like a ton of fun, dude. So
Yeah,
I've just been watching streamers play it.
Yeah, I'm trying to 100% like the map and stuff like that, get all the locations. Platinuming it is it seems within reach. I'm gonna have some friends help with like the slaughter arena, because that way it's like as long as one person is still alive, they can revive you, that type of thing. But I have a pretty good Moe's build where I have a homing grenade. Grenades heal me. If I can get grenades off and heal in time, then hopefully I won't die. So
Yeah, because I've always loved that Borderlands, and even in Battleborn, like, there's just these combos that you can make with your abilities and your tier trees, and it's just so beautiful to pull them off, or like to finally unlock them.
And then when you get like the right gear and stuff, and you're gonna love the game, by the way. It's just, oh gosh, it's so much fun. So I've been playing Moe's, and I've been using bottomless mags, and I got a Kravi Ogre, which is like, imagine an assault rifle that shoots rockets. But it has this massive magazine, and I could pretty much just put my finger on the trigger and never have to reload, the way my build is kind of like turned out. And then I've got a legendary class mod that the longer the more splash damage you make, the more damage it causes, and so it can like double splash damage by 100, and so yeah, it's that's I've got a pretty good build with her right now, and it's I am by no means like a super expert, like I'm like a, because there are people out there that do amazing things in builds. This is just I'm I wouldn't say casual, but I'm an enthusiast, but not a super expert. So I've just been experimenting with different stuff, and it's kind of like when you get something and you're thinking, oh, this is amazing, I wonder if this will work, and then just experimenting and trying stuff out. I'm sure, real experts would look at my build and go, well, this is actually kind of lame. So
all right, so our next question comes from Horizon_StarZ. You might recognize that name, you might not.
I do.
He's a prominent member in the Battleborn community, from what I remember in my years there. In my years on the front lines in the Battleborn community. It's been a while since I've had contact with anyone there. I've kept contact with a few friends, but other than that, everyone else, unfortunately, is kind of just faded to memories. He asks, Oscar Mike's top 5 bros of the Battleborn and or Planet Mike.
Well, Oscar Mike wants to be friends with everybody pretty much, because he sees the crew of the Nova as his family. But definitely his number one bro would be Montana. They've been best bros for quite some time. I think that he's also best bros with Isaac, even though Isaac is. It's kind of like how, Isaac's one of his best friends, but it's not exactly the same way around. You know what I mean? That kind of stems from the old boot camp trailer where he calls Isaac computer guy. And that was written by Aaron Lindy, and he created a great dynamic between the two of them in that trailer. And to act opposite myself was a lot of fun with that. So he idolizes Whiskey Foxtrot. He sees Whiskey as kind of like, because he was the prototype clone, the original clone. He sees Foxtrot as kind of like his big brother, not just a bro, but literally a bro, like an actual bro, a big bro. But let's see. So that's 3. So 2 more. Oh gosh. Man, I should have thought about. Let's see. It's been so long, Battleborn. Oh, who else would he be friends with? I think that he'd have a lot of fun with, say, Kid Ultra. They'd probably enjoy watching cartoons together. I think, yeah, they would enjoy that. They would watch. And I'm assuming that at some point in time he's become pretty close with Atticus since all the time they spent on the holodeck doing mysteries. Planet Mike, that's he'd have to get back into with Planet Mike, because he was booted out of Planet Mike so long ago, but I'm sure he'd want to be friends with everybody there too. I think Oscar just in his quest for finding a place where he belongs, when he found the as you hear in his game lore, he's just happy to have a family to call his own. So he just wants friends. He's a good boy.
Oscar Mike, best boy.
I honestly think that he and Claptrap would actually get along quite well, because Claptrap could tell all of the stories, and Oscar would just be, he would just be thrilled. He would be sit there, eyes glued to Claptrap, going,
And then what?
He would just be, he would believe probably everything Claptrap told him.
And Claptrap may or may not exaggerate some details about his involvement.
Oh, exactly. It's like, man, I can't talk about Borderlands 3 now because I don't want to spoil anything for you. There's...
Well, you can talk about it. I've already seen like a bunch of stuff from streamers.
Yeah,
I haven't seen everything, but I don't really care about spoilers.
Yeah, there's a character that meets him and has heard about him and thinks that he is super cool, and he's so surprised by that, and he's just happy to talk to her as much as she wants. It's kind of like to him, it's kind of like a dream come true that somebody's actually interested in what he has to say.
So I guess speaking of Claptrap,
Mm-hmm.
That kind of ties into the next request here. We kind of already talked about this, so if you wanted to just kind of skip it, I guess we'd be fine with it.
Cool.
But this also comes with a request of the voice, which sadly we can't do because he doesn't have access to the way that they process Claptrap's voice, which is done in the game, not even like...
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people have noticed, well, Claptrap sounds different. Well, he does sound different because it's me this time. But the voice processing is actually done... It's actually done 100% in-game now. It's actually processed in real time in the game. And so you know how like data miners will basically, they used to extract voices from... they would extract voices from like Borderlands, and here you go. It'll be interesting because the way I understand it, it's just our straight up voices in the game now, completely unprocessed, unpitched, and it's all done with new filters within the game engine. Excuse me. Oh, there you go. That's a recorded burp right there.
We do it live.
Yes. Oh, I had chicken wings for dinner, and yes, that's what's gonna happen. You're gonna burp. Anyway, so all of that is done in engine, and so it legitimately is different than before. But it's a good way to think about it is that it's 7 years later. Claptrap himself, I mean, you look at him, he's had the crap beat out of him. He's kind of slapped together with bits of metal, and there's bullet holes in the boy. He's been through a lot, so he is gonna sound a little different.
Yeah, everyone in that game is kind of growing up a little bit. So his question, u/chorus, Koras, asks about stepping into the metaphorical shoes, or as you called it, the wheel of being Claptrap. Do you feel constrained by effectively having to mimic someone else's voice with a character as distinctive as Claptrap?
It was golly, it was intimidating. It really is. It's like, to put an analogy in there. Oh gosh, taking over for such, an incredibly iconic role, and with a performance that is pretty much just like kind of really tied to the character in a way. It's intimidating. It's like when somebody picks a new James Bond, what is it? Like when George Lazenby, was took over for Sean Connery in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mean, what kind of... I always wonder what did that feel like? Like, okay, everybody loves Sean Connery. You're going to be the new guy. I mean, what does that feel like? I kind of know what that feels like in a voice way, I guess. It's I love the character. I've been playing Borderlands, from the beginning. And it's just, and when being asked to do it, it's like, well, yeah, that's quite the honor. I would love to, So I got as close as I could. Some of the direction was it's for VR, get as close as I possibly could. And then for Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary, they wanted me to loosen up the mimicry a bit because it's I think Commander Lilith takes place 5 years later? I can't remember the exact time from the end of Borderlands 2 to Commander Lilith. The time frame is there, but they wanted me to loosen up the mimicry. And then when 3 rolled around, it was kind of like I was given the freedom to don't focus so much on mimicking the voice of Claptrap, but just focus on being Claptrap the character as he was, as he was written, and how he is as a person bot, as a character. And so there was more freedom in a sense in Borderlands 3 to stretch my legs or my wheel as it is, but to try to stick with who he is as a character. So yeah, trying to match it, but not in Borderlands 3 it was matching the character but not trying to mimic it anymore. Is that making sense? It sounds like I'm making sense when I'm saying it, but I don't know if it is. But
it's translating for me. Like, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's it was hard. It was hard and extraordinarily intimidating. I will tell you a story of one of the reasons why I was super nervous about this, and I kind of knew that. Okay, so I think I don't know if I've ever told this story. I don't know if I told this in the last time that we had an interview, but so when I was working at Hasbro, we did the commercials for Transformers Movie 2. And when I was presenting the scripts to Hasbro, I did an Optimus Prime imitation. I think everybody's imitated Optimus Prime at one point in time because Peter Cullen has an amazing voice. And we were told that we would be getting Peter Cullen to be the voice of Optimus Prime in our TV commercial. And that was just wow. And so we do the commercials, we shoot them. It's 2 weeks before they go to air, and we're gonna record Peter Cullen, and I'm super excited to talk with him over the studio, the intercom and stuff like that, over the phone, because he's like an idol, and he's on from what I was told, he ended up he was on a press junket for the movie in China or something, or I don't know, but the folks from Hasbro said he was unavailable suddenly, and we were supposed to be recording him in a week. Well, what do we do? And then they're like, oh, just have Foronda do it. And I thought, I sound nothing like him. I sound nothing like Peter Cullen. I sound like somebody imitating Peter Cullen. And they're like, oh no, you're fine. We want you to do it. And so, when essentially the people who are your boss say, we want you to do this, then you're like, okay, I will do it. I'll do my best. And, I do the Optimus Prime lines for these Dark of the Moon toy commercials. And I did my best. And to the point where it's like I'm listening to it, I'm like, I am Optimus Prime. And I'm like, I possibly, I don't know. And, they put some processing on it, and it went into the commercials. And, to a little kid, children seem not to notice, but I knew it. I knew it as soon as they would go live. Boy, the YouTube comments on those Transformers TV commercials were terrible. They hated the voice. However, somebody in the thread, professed to be, the expert and know everything about it, said it was Michael Dorn. And so word got around that Michael Dorn, Lieutenant Worf from Star Trek, or I think didn't he become Captain in DS9? I can't remember now. But anyway, so word got around that Michael Dorn was the voice of Optimus Prime in those toy commercials. And for a while I thought, yeah, maybe I'll let Michael Dorn take the heat for that. I don't know. It was just, it was, you know, it was kind of funny because I actually felt bad because I'm like, man, everybody's going to hate on Michael Dorn now because they don't like it. But I mean, I knew I sounded nothing like Optimus Prime, and I did my best for Hasbro. They asked me to do it, and you know, I did it, and because you know they were our client, so it was just, yep, okay, and but yeah, that was the first time. I had to, I took on the role of somebody when they were not available. And yeah, so I knew that with Claptrap, I knew that there would be people who would not be happy with the difference. But you know, it's, they asked me to do it. They entrusted me with him, and I did my best. And it's, you know, I want him to keep going. I love the character, you know, and it's just, you know, David and Mikey, when they, you know, when they were in Borderlands 1, you know, writing and acting, they made, you know, they made an icon, and it's just being asked to, you know, carry the mantle of that. It's an honor. It was kind of terrifying, but you know what? I did the best that I could, and I'm happy with the work. I really am. It's, you know, playing through the game, actually hearing it in the setting, and I'm proud of it. I really am. You know, it's an honor being Claptrap now. It's really something. It's still kind of hard to wrap my head around, you know.
Almost like you're being starstruck, but you're the star.
It is hard for me to wrap my head around that. It really is. Gosh, it's the first time somebody asked me to sign something, it was like, okay. it was such a new thing, you know. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh?
But he did ask if you could read some Claptrap lines. I guess, like, since we can't do, you know, with the post-processing, if you could just do like the raw voice of some generic anime additional voices he's got credits for, or vice versa. If you could do like an anime voice for some Claptrap lines, maybe, because that's just what he's asking for. If you want to do that, if not, we can just move on to the next thing.
Okay, let me think. Well, everybody seems to have one favorite line from Borderlands 3, and I'm trying to think of an anime character that is completely different. Okay, so here we go. How about Motto from Fairy Tail? He is the pumpkin MC for the Grand Magic Games, saying, "My ass! It's full of stars!" Wow, I buried the needle in the recording there. Let me back up a bit. Okay. My ass! It's full of stars! And of course, since you haven't played 3 yet, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was a nice little reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey. When Dave Bowman goes into the monolith, but it was just, oh man, that was a great line.
Well, now you're just like hyping me up to play it. Well, even more so than I already am.
Oh, it's so good. It's
right.
There's so many there's gosh, yeah, there's so many characters in there, and I mean it's just it's when you look at it and you realize just how big the Borderlands universe, you know, had become in the last, in the last 10 years. There's so many characters and interconnected stories and stuff. It's just it's something.
So Horizon Stars asked another question. I kind of separated these a little bit so we could, you know, throw in some Battleborn amongst all the Borderlands questions. So Horizon Star asks, what is Oscar Mike's favorite pizza topping?
Harrisburg, obviously.
What? You kind of cut out on my end.
Oh, Harrisburg. That's like one of the primary meat sources, it seems, on the Nova, and I think as much as Whiskey would want to experiment with pizza toppings, I think Mike seems like, how there are just all kinds of gourmet pizzas, but then you've always got good old standby pepperoni. Mike seems like a pepperoni type of person, but there is no pepperoni, as far as I know, in the Borderlands universe. And it seems like the meat that's in a lot of stuff is Harrisburg. So, yeah, I think like a sliced Harrisburg sausage topping.
Well, I did not know that, even though I have like 500 hours in the game and have actually looked at the lore outside of the game. I'm surprised I didn't know that like that was the name of the meat that they ate mostly, or probably most commonly available to them.
Well, that's kind of like a self-head-canonizing in a sense, because Beatrix, she worked with Harrisburg and stuff like that, and it's one of those things that kind of pops up occasionally in lore, and so I'm assuming that it's a very easy to get meat, an easy to get stock in what's left of the universe.
Like, forget the real estate market, the farmer's market must be bonkers.
Yeah, because there's really not that, aren't that many locations to raise food sources anymore. In a weird way. And the Harrisburg keeps popping up in lore, so I'm assuming that they're kind of like all-purpose, They can work in science labs and be raised as food. I don't know.
Well, I hope it's not like the leftover experiments that they're eating. That would be awful.
Oh, no. The Whiskey's a self-taught gourmet. He wouldn't, he'd only get the finest.
Only the finest ingredients.
Yes.
All right. So our next question comes from you/Sir Stanger, and I was a little curious whenever I saw that name, because that's a YouTuber that I used to watch a while ago. He makes content for a completely different game that I was really involved with a couple of years ago. So I double checked, and that's his actual account. So I guess shout out to him. He actually makes pretty good content. Anyway, his question via r/Borderlands was actually about voice acting in general. What were some of the first steps into becoming a full-time voice actor? You mentioned that you don't actually do it technically full-time. You do it as a main job, but you also have a side gig.
Yeah, I still do freelance writing, yeah. When people ask me what my job is, I will tell them that I'm a voice actor. And, because when I worked in advertising, and that was my full-time job, I would say I'm an advertising copywriter, associate creative director, and that's what I do. And I also have a side gig voice acting, but now I am a voice actor, and I have a side gig doing ad writing. So, voice acting is my full-time job.
So his main question is like coming from the perspective of, I guess, a young Jim Foronda, or younger Jim Foronda, trying to get into the industry of voice acting, not necessarily in games, but just voice acting in general. Like, I guess he's asking for like some best advice to make the jump from part-time to full-time, or making the jump from no time to part-time. That sort of thing.
Oh gosh, see, it's the way I got into voice acting is very. It's different than a way a lot of my colleagues have gotten into it. Some people studied acting in school. Some people worked in radio, or they were audio engineers who started doing some voices on the side as well. I got into it. You heard the whole story about working at Hasbro, and I kind of fell into it by accident, and then I started doing it on the side, and then it turned into my main line of work. But the advice I have is always study acting and techniques on acting. You can always improve. I still study stuff, and I do workshops and things, and because I think if you ever reach a point where you think you're the best at something and you don't need to learn anything anymore, then that's probably when you need to learn something the most, because I'm one of those people that feels that you're never a 100% expert in anything. You could always stand to learn or expand or improve somehow. You can always learn. It's always possible to learn more. Let's see. I know it's a lot easier now to find productions that need folks simply due to the internet. There are indie game developers that put out open casting calls. There are, independent animators, YouTubers who do little films and stuff. There's so many available avenues to start working on the internet, essentially. I think, what is it? There's a place called Casting Call Club, I think, on the internet, where people, voice actors starting out and voice actors, indie voice actors that have established stuff. They work through that. There are several places where people, can do voice work online and then build up a reel of work, and then shop it around and try to find an agent. Here's the thing: the hardest thing about voice acting, and I will tell everybody this, anybody who asks me what voice acting is like, and I tell them that voice acting is a never-ending string of failures, punctuated by the occasional success. Because you will audition and not get anything, and then you'll audition again and you won't get it, and you'll just keep auditioning, and boy, you're not getting any auditions. Oh, look, you got one. Oh, that's awesome. Be happy with that work you got, and you go to the session and you record that and you get paid for it and you feel great, and then you audition again and you don't get it, and you audition again, you don't get it, but then you get another audition, you land another part, and you keep at it. The hardest part about voice acting is knowing there's a lot of rejection. You audition and you don't get it, and you just kind of you learn to accept that, and you deal with it, and you go on again. You just keep trying. There are a lot of times where I thought, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? Am I good at it? I don't know, because I'm like one of my worst critics, my own worst critics. But even now, sometimes you get, I'll just get like a wave of self-doubt, and but I keep at it, and that's the hardest thing to get over when starting out, is that even when you feel there's times where you feel like, why am I even trying? It's okay to feel that way, but don't let it make you stop. If you really believe that it's something that you want to do, you keep at it, you keep learning, you improve your acting, you improve your skills, and you keep at it. I listened to some of my early stuff, and I'm thinking, oh boy, it's amazing anybody ever cast me in anything. And and it's and you get better over time, and you get more work. And I mean, I've been doing it for 17 years, and I went to my first con this year. Even doing this after 17 years, I was finally invited to a convention, and my first convention, and I did that. I did Let's Play Gaming Expo in Irving, Texas, and that was a lot of fun. I've actually got other cons coming up. I'm super excited about that. Quite a few, actually. Some haven't been announced yet, so I can't talk about them yet. But yeah, it's it might take a while, but keep at it.
Well, that's definitely some solid advice, because I'm secretly also an aspiring Jim Foronda, so to speak, at least. So, like, having that advice firsthand really helps.
Yeah, this job will, sometimes you'll feel terrible, but you know what? It's okay to feel that. Just don't let it get the best of you. You just keep at it.
Yeah. So while we're on this topic, actually, I secretly had a question that I kind of popped into my head while you were talking.
Okay.
How do you get used to the sound of your own voice?
Oh gosh.
Is it just something that happens over time? Like as you hear it more and more? Because I've been doing content creation for years. Like I'm used to the sound of my own voice, but for some reason, whenever I hear it in the game, it's just completely different.
You know, the first time you hear your own recorded voice, and it is a little weird. But oh gosh, you have to think of your voice as being, you know, it's uniquely yours. I mean, there are people with like, you know, every voice is different. You know, you have Chris Sabat has like a super wonderful, deep bass loaded voice, and it's smooth and it sounds awesome. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna sound like him. I'm never gonna sound like him. And you know, so I don't try to sound like him. You know, it's like I've got my own range. I've got my own sound. It's you don't have to sound like other people. You don't have to have a sound that, you know, if you think that that's the sound that people are looking for, that's the sound that a particular part is looking for. It doesn't mean that all parts, you know, are going to sound like that. It's you know, don't think of the sound of your voice as being a negative. Everybody's voice is different. Oh my gosh. Okay, case in point, I have a colleague that I was in a series of children's videos with, and she has naturally one of the highest, youngest sounding voices ever. It's very high. And, you know, she's a mom and she has children in school, and, you know, she would talk about how sometimes she'd answer the phone and people are always asking her, you know, are your parents home? And she's like, no, this is, you know, I am the parent. But, and when she was younger, you know, people made fun of her voice, you know, because she has a very high-pitched voice. And, you know, in acting, you know, that voice is perfect. She sounds like a child, and, you know, and she sounds like the child voice that will never grow up. That's why, you know how in a lot of shows, a lot of the young characters are a lot of the young characters are voiced by adults because, you know, children grow up. But I mean, her voice is, you know, she's never going to grow up, but she'll still sound like a kid. She could be a kid forever for a show. And she's just, yeah, it's like she's acting actually, you know, she became comfortable with her voice in that sense. I mean, she became comfortable with it through acting, and she realized that her voice is an asset. You know, it's like, oh, you know, people used to make fun of me because, you know, I sounded like I was 6 years old, but now this is something that very few people have, and I can do super awesome. And yeah, and she's very proud of the way she sounds, and I think that's great. I think being comfortable with the sound of your own voice, you know, learn to, you know that you don't sound like other people. You sound like you. You have a unique sound, and, you know, that can be a plus. Don't look at, you know, if you don't like the sound of your own voice, you know, ask yourself, why do I not like the sound of my own voice? You know, it's, you know, what's bad about it? Maybe there isn't anything bad about it. Maybe I'm just thinking it should sound different when actually in reality, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? Boy, I am rambling. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question? Oh gosh.
Yeah, definitely.
I am the worst interview guest ever because I will talk for hours.
that makes you a very good interview.
Oh gosh.
guest in my book. Like, if you can take a question that's as simple as like how to get comfortable in your own voice, and you can talk for like a good 20 minutes, like, and it's all useful and very good information, that's like solid interview skills right there. I wish I could talk for 20 minutes about anything. It just shows that, like, one, that you're passionate about what you're talking about, and two, that you know what you're talking about.
Well, hopefully that it helps some folks that are, I don't know. It's self-doubt is it's a bad thing, and You know, it's a hard thing to shake, and I know, you know, it sucks dealing with that and having to live with that. So it's like, if I can help anybody, you know, deal with theirs, then hopefully that does some good, you know.
Yeah. So I have one question from Discord, and that's it.
Oh.
It's the only question from Discord.
Okay.
So what type of character or person do you, referring to you, Jim Foronda, see Claptrap as? What emotions do you enjoy acting out as Claptrap?
So Claptrap is extraordinarily complex. Anybody who's played Claptastic Voyage knows that there is a lot more to him than what's on the surface. And so I approach Claptrap in this sense, is that you know, it's a simplified version of of what you see him as in Claptastic Voyage, because that's a lot to take in. It's a lot to, but the simplest way of describing Claptrap is that he desperately wants friends. He's extraordinarily lonely. He is the last of his kind, and so he's surrounded by all these heroes, people who have done incredible things to save Pandora and to stop you know, the Atlas Corporation in the beginning, Commandant Steele, and oh gosh, everybody in Borderlands 1 DLC, like General Knox and stuff, all the stuff with Handsome Jack. He's surrounded by heroes, and he's, you know, he sees himself as, well, you know, I'm just Claptrap. You know, he was a frag trap for a while, but it seems like he is kind of like living imposter syndrome. You know, he's with the Crimson Raiders, but deep down he feels like, you know, well, you know, why would they like me? These people are heroes. I'm just, you know. So socially awkward that he is, he tries to talk himself up, I think, to be liked. He talks himself up. He brags a lot because, you know, he's socially awkward. He doesn't realize that it's doing the exact opposite, but he feels that if he's the hero, then maybe more people will like him. He will have friends if he himself is the hero. So he likes to talk himself up like that. I think there's a reason behind his constant bragging and his constant, you know, embellishing of the truth. Yeah, and it's just deep down he's just lonely, and he doesn't really express that very well. He's probably the most socially awkward character I've ever played. That's why there's a scene, you know, the first time he meets, oh gosh, spoilers everyone if you haven't played the game, David. The first time he meets Ava, and she wants to hear his stories, and he's so surprised by it. And so he just tells this grand story of how he saved the ship, and he's so happy. I think there's a point there where he's genuinely very happy to meet Ava, and things happen in the game, and there's a part where it's one of those NPC line to talk to him, and he's concerned about her, and he's, you know, and he thinks about, what can I do for her, and in delivering that line, you know, there's an emotion there I wanted to put in there, is that, you know, he's, you know, he knows that she's his friend. So yeah, Claptrap, he just wants friends. You know, he's lonely, and he feels like he doesn't quite fit in. So he does his best. Unfortunately, sometimes that makes it worse, but it's kind of nice in the beginning of the game. Lilith says Claptrap is a little, well, Claptrap, but he's still one of us. So even though he doesn't realize it, you know, they still have a soft spot for him.
Yeah, I did see that, and I didn't think of it very much in the moment, but now that like I hear that, that just puts a completely new perspective on that whole intro sequence right there.
Yeah, you know, he's and,
Wow.
you know, and he's fun. He's fun. He's meant to be fun, and it's you know, and you know, it's he's a good boy. He just doesn't know how to talk to people, you know.
Well, I can definitely relate there. I'm not very good at talking to people, at least people I don't know.
It's yeah. He tries. Just he doesn't succeed very well.
Okay. So we have a Claptrap request, I think. Okay. I guess this is just someone saying that they really liked a few of the writer's lines. And you mentioned this one earlier. It's from u/Gandalf's. Okay, I'm not gonna say that whole name. Via r/Borderlands, and the text just says his favorite lines are ones that he improvised. I loved the "Screw you, Pandora, you can't hurt us anymore," and "My ass is full of stars."
Yeah, I can't take credit for those. Those were written. Borderlands 3, there wasn't as much room for improvisation, like grand improvisation, but I think a lot of flavor added to it was. But the reason why is because the story is so intricate. Everything is so interwoven in this particular story that you couldn't ad-lib too far from anything because you didn't want to change the flavor of the scene. You didn't want to distract from something that would actually, is important later. But favorite ad-lib was stealth time. They just said, here's the animation. It had already been animated for that part of the demo when he basically tiptoes and, he tip rolls, I guess.
That was improvised?
That was improvised. It's
That was so funny. That was like my favorite thing that I've seen so far. It's like stealth.
Yeah, it's and that was all. The original ending was kind of a ha-cha! But then Danny Homan, the writer, said there's that big slide move that he does, and then Danny Homan said you should say something like stealth slide, and which was brilliant. So I did another ad lib, and then I added the stealth slide at the end. But I think it's funny. I think they actually edited the stealth slide from the second take with the ad lib from the first take, and they kind of blended those together. And I love that. And then, oh gosh, even more spoilers. So building off of stealth slide, there's just something pretty incredible in the closing credits. I'll just say that. Let's see. Also in the very beginning, I wasn't directed to do it. I was just reading it, but where Claptrap says I can sing and dance, and some guns have an alternate shooting mode. And so when I did the take, I just sang. He said I can dance and sing, and then I just sang. And some guns have an alternate shooting mode. I ad-libbed that because it didn't say please sing here. I just did it. And they were laughing in the booth, and I said, "Do you want me to do another one where I don't sing?" And they said, "No, that sounds great." And then I said they had me do another one just in case it sounded weird after it was processed, but they loved the singing and they left that in there. I was real happy with that. Little bits of flavor as well. Sometimes it just kind of comes out when you're in character. There's one of the dead Claptraps you find is the one who read a book so hard that he died. And Claptrap is talking about what a freaking nerd that Claptrap was. There's a big laugh at the end of that line that wasn't in the script. I just added it, and they left that in there. It's just like, ha! And I don't know. It just kind of, you get kind of wrapped up in the performance, and you'll throw something in there, just because it feels right at the time. And if they like it, great. And if if they don't, then they'll cut it, or they'll ask you to re-record it. But most of the time I stick to the script. but if something just feels right there, they're cool with you just kind of like, rolling with it. But if you ever go like way too far off, then it's like, okay, we'll just do another take and we'll do it as is, but then we'll save this other thing. And it's Claptrap. There wasn't as much a possibility for improvisation Claptrap wise in Borderlands 3 as there was in Battleborn, but he's been really fun to be. The Claptrap adventures, which is on the radio in the game, he basically tells the entire story of the Borderlands franchise. And of course he makes him the hero of everything. But I think we recorded, I can't remember, was it 18? Was it 28? I think maybe it was 18 segments, broken up segments, where he tells the story. You'd have to sit by the radio in game for several hours, I guess, to hear all of the content, but that was fun because, boy, I just read all of those one after the other, and that was a day. But just a lot of just the delivery of that was fun to play around with. But most of it is close to script, but
was the Claptrap rap, was that improvised?
Oh gosh, no. Oh good lord, no. I do not have. I don't have. My rap game is not that skilled. It's not that strong. So there was a Gearbox loot, the Gearbox loot store. They did a limited edition run of Claptrap mixtapes, and so Dante Silva, one of the writers of Borderlands 3, he's I played Dungeons and Dragons with him and a group of friends there. He said, hey, he sends me a message, how's your rap game? I'm like, I don't know. And then he told me the story of how there's the music and he wanted to write a rap for it. And he asked me if I would give it I said, well, I'll give it a try. I don't know if I'll sound any good. And so one Sunday before the game, we wanted to do this as, to see if it would work. And we just laid down the rap to see if it would work. And then Andrew put the Claptrap, audio effects on it. And so yeah, it kind of got around, and it turned out, they everybody really likes this. I'm thinking, really? And so, I heard it. And they played it at the launch party. That was kind of oh yeah. I was kind of surprised when they did the trailer premiere, and that was the last thing they played before they played the countdown for the big reveal trailer a few months ago, and I was kind of surprised by that. I'm like, holy cow! But yeah, and it's in the game too, and somebody posted it, and yeah, I did not all those words. Those are Dante Silva's words, and he wrote some awesome lyrics, and it was fun recording them.
It was fire.
Thank you.
That's what it was.
Thank you. I mean, it's hard because recording Claptrap is max volume. It's he's very loud, and his volume is always pretty much at 10, and that takes a lot of breath out of you. So there were a lot of stanzas where it's like I would get to the end of some bars, and it was just like I would run out of breath, and it's like, okay, I need to take a big inhale to get out these 8 lines, and then I've got to take a break because I can't. It was just I was getting lines out like this, and but yeah, I just in my dreams. I just hope in the future it would be awesome if there was a Balex Claptrap, rap battle. And then, and the thing is, and of course, Balex would just wipe the floor with Claptrap, but then, and then Claptrap would be like, yeah, I totally won that. And people would be like, no, you were terrible. But yeah, and then of course, he would think that he and Balex were best friends by then. And again, in my dreams, that would be so much fun. Oh, Ice-T would totally wipe the floor with me.
Well, maybe we'll see that in a DLC expansion.
Oh, I can
maybe.
only hope. I can
In
only hope. That
dreams.
would be so awesome.
So, I do have one last question, and I think we've already kind of answered it, but I want to ask anyway. It comes from Matthew Harvey on Twitter. The only question from Twitter that I could actually ask. What was your favorite part of voicing Claptrap?
Oh, my favorite part about voicing Claptrap. Well, I've already talked so much about how I enjoy being Claptrap. So let me think. Okay, one of my favorite. I have to say, one of my favorite things that we did. Okay, there's two favorite things I have in Borderlands 3, and I like Claptrap's entire journey. Putting together Veronica. He just wants a friend. You know, he's making a companion, you know? And it's like, and you know, on the surface people think, well, you know, that's Claptrap. He's a little pervert. I'm like, he's just lonely. He's putting together Veronica, and when you find hands, basically, you know, you find pieces, and then when you go back to his little hovel in Sanctuary 3, and he's putting her together, and every time you find new parts, you'll at random you'll get a little interaction between the two of them, with depending on which parts you have. And when you find the hands, and he's so shy and he's so timid, it's like when he's actually around someone, you know, that he's so shy, and he says, can I hold your hand? Because he's just dreamed about having, you know, a friend to hold hands with and talk with and just whatever, you know, because he talks a big game, but deep down he's just lonely, and he's you know, and it's he's such a little gentleman as best as he can be, and he just politely asks, he's like, can I hold your hand? And I'm like, he's so sweet when I was reading the script. And I love that, because it showed, you know, it showed a side of him that I think a lot of people, you know, might not have heard before. And it was fun. And then the other part, one of my other favorite parts is, again, on the radios that you hear throughout Pandora, there is a it's kind of an homage to Critical Role. You know the Critical Role, the Dungeons and Dragons podcast that some voice actors have done. You might have heard about it. They only had like the biggest Kickstarter in I think in history or something like that. I can't remember what the stat was, but it was insane. But anyway, so there's an homage to that with Tiny Tina, Brick, Mordecai, and Claptrap called Bunkabustin'. It's a Bunkers and Badasses podcast that they do. And Claptrap is part of the game. And they have a special guest join the game, and Claptrap decides he's going to teach this special guest how to play Bunkers and Badasses. And it's fun. And having played Dungeons and Dragons with some friends at Gearbox, specifically Dante Silva, one of the writers who actually wrote these little segments. I was very comfortable in it, and it was just fun to play Claptrap playing essentially a Dungeons and Dragons style game, and specifically Bunkers and Badasses. And oh god, it's that whole tale. If you catch all the episodes, somebody actually found all the episodes and chained them together on YouTube, so you can hear them if you don't want to sit next to the radio in the game for hours and hours on end, because there's so much radio content. But that was a blast to do. That was a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds pretty cool, dude. Like that just sounds really fun.
He's fun. He's a good boy. I like him. He's awesome. He's fun to play.
Well, I think that's all the time that we have. That's definitely all the questions that we have. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for answering all the questions and playing along. So I appreciate you being here, and I will see you guys hopefully in a future video.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thanks everybody for listening to all of my endless rambling. I I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks.
Yeah! You're about to get caught in the Claptrap rap trap. Putting the hype in Hyperion. Well, they call me CL4PTP. Only got one eye, but even I can see that when it comes to this wall-hunting mercenary game in a world of nobodies, I'm the #1 name. Elvis, Helios, Pandora, and space. My model wheel takes me all over the place. And wherever I go, I'm in minds and hearts. Don't need to climb stairs when I'm climbing these charts. Lilith, Roland, those other two dudes didn't come to my birthday party. Rude, but they all found time to go fight the warrior. Leading me like some glorified courier. They shot me down without giving me a chance. All I wanted to do was help out and dance. One step to the left, one step to the right. Just don't step to me unless you're ready for a fight. Check it out. New bonuses this week. Check it out. New bonuses this week. Check it out. New bonuses this week. Hey, that guy did what you wanted. Check it out. New bonuses this week. Check it out. New bonuses this week. Check it out. New bonuses this week. I snap this track is my time to attack. Hit him with the clap back, catch him up in the flat. Cause their style is whack and they're unattractive. I clap trap more handsome than Jack. So you want to hear a story?